So time itself isn't a uniform thing. It's not like every moment in time is exactly like every other moment in time. Certainly from the magical point of view, each moment in time is unique, and each moment in time contains within itself the potential to express in a particular way. And everything that happens in that moment of time shares in and expresses the underlying quality of that moment in time. Now, this sounds very abstract and heady, but the ancients observed this, and of course all kinds of ritual activities, magical work, and other kinds of seasonal celebrations, all kinds of things that were aligned to be auspicious in some way, relied on this principle, right? And probably the most fundamental of these that we see most commonly referred to is the phases of the moon. And anyone who practices magic to some extent will be aware, perhaps or perhaps not, but usually people are aware of the fact that you can time your magical work by using the phases of the moon. So you can use the waxing phase or the increasing phase of the moon to do spell work, to draw things or influences towards you, and you use the waning phase of the moon to remove influences or get things to decrease. And there are many systems for this. Root workers will sometimes time things by doing certain works with the rising sun or the setting sun to either have an influence come into being or to have an influence set with the sun. Another old-fashioned, old-timey conjure way of working, of course, is workers using the hands of the clock. With the hands of the clock go down, you use that time to remove something, and when the hands of the clock rise, you use that time to bring an influence towards you. And there are many systems for this. Aside from the moon and the hands of the clock, of course, we have astrology. And astrology is an entire science based around magical timing and using the movement of the planets, the aspects that they form and so on, not only to predict events, but really to capitalize on this idea that each moment in time is special and expresses its inner structure, its magical potential in a particular way, and that if you were to select the right moment in time, you can participate in the power of that moment and basically use it. You could tap into the way that moment is expressing, the way that pattern is expressing, and bring something similar into being, or something auspicious into being alongside an auspicious moment, or maybe something destructive into being during an inauspicious moment, right? And electional astrologers will of course specialize in this astrological discipline, and this is using astrological timing to set your wedding date, sign a contract, build a building, anything that you want to have an auspicious basis where you want to include that special quality of that moment in time into the inception of that thing, right? So there's this electional aspect where you use that to time actions you're going to take to make sure that they're going to be beneficial in some way. And of course there is the magical component of that, where you are using the quality of a moment astrologically selected to perform a ritual or a spell, and you pick the moment so that it is most powerful for the spell that you intend to use, right? Hands of the clock, phases of the moon, planets, and so forth. But there is another way, and I'm going to teach that to you in this video. I call it electional tarot, and you can use the tarot in exactly the same way. There's a method where you can read the cards to define which is the right moment, not only to do spell work, that's going to be the most efficient way of doing something, or the most powerful way of doing a spell, finding the moment that is the most efficacious for a certain spell. But also you can use this technique to divine the right moment to do something, either magically or in some other practical day. Perhaps you want to know when to send that text to that boyfriend so that it's going to entice him in the right way. Or perhaps you want to know when to send in that job application, or when to submit that proposal. Whatever the case may be, here's a technique for you. I trust that you find this helpful. So even though I titled this video Electional Tarot, of course you can use this technique with any form of cartomancy. The Lenormand, for example, or another oracle deck, a Sibylla, or anything like that. Any system where you're familiar, that you feel familiar and comfortable with, this will still work. One of the things about this technique that is really great is that it is very intimately tailored to your own spiritual framework, with which I mean to say the spirits and the deities and the beings, the angels, the gods and goddesses, daimons and genii that you may be working with, right? So while astrological timing using planetary hours, for example, is a great way to work, if you're working with planetary forces in particular, or spirits that have a planetary attribution, but often we are working with spirits, familiars and so on that don't necessarily, strictly speaking, have a planetary attribution that we could easily slot into an astrological framework, right? For example, as an espiritista, I often work with various kinds of spirits of the dead, and of course we can loosely categorize these astrologically, but strictly speaking, they don't follow within that framework. They have their own particular tendencies and qualities, and that's what's great about this technique. It will allow you to use electional timing and magical timing with any other spiritual force or power or agency, or even if you're not working with a particular spirit and you're just doing herbal magics or plain candle magics using your faith and your own mental and spiritual power, this technique might still be useful to you, because it's a lot easier than having to learn electional astrology and planetary hours or can be quite constraining. So this could be a more flexible tool for you to use. So the crux of the technique is just simply to select a certain division of time, whether it be days or hours or say weeks, and there are other divisions that we can explore, but days, hours, of weeks are the simplest way to go. And then very simply what you will do is, based on whatever work you might want to do, let's say for example that you were interested in doing some job magic and you were hoping to do some spell work to help you find a new and better job, and you want to know what day would be most auspicious to do that work on, right? So then you would say shuffle your deck and then very simply lay out 7 cards, one for each day of the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. By looking at the cards, we already get some great ideas. Now, this in essence is a general week reading. It is not only showing you the underlying currents and patterns of time, but it is also showing you, it's going to give you a forecast of what's likely to happen in that week, or where the tendencies are for things to manifest in that week. Yeah, but because we're working with it in an electional way, we're now going to select a day based on what is best suited. And of course, two cards immediately jump out at us. We've got the Magician card, which is one of the classic work cards. It shows something, someone who has the power, the skill, and the tools at hand to accomplish what they want. It's also in the Marseille, it's very much considered a work card because the magician is a jack of all trades. He has got lots of skills and he's able to impose his will on the world, right? And then after that, we have the world card. And that's a very another auspicious symbol here because it promises fulfillment, it promises completion and so on. So that already is giving us two great options. And what I would say is that the Magician card, and that would be a Friday in this case, would be a good day to plan your work, right? And it's wise to consider the cards that follow, right? Because we have the World that follows and we've got the Queen of Pentacles that follows. These are all generally good career, business type of cards. For me, this is not only suggesting that this is a good day to do the work on, to do your spell, to bring that new job, but that the outcome, the way that the time is unfolding, the way that the pattern of time is resolving to that fulfillment, getting the recognition or the job that you want, and that giving you some level of mastery over your finances, turning you into the Queen of Pentacles, as it were, right? Had this been followed by something more sinister, let's say, after the Magician, you had the Three of Swords, let's say, then I would be a little bit reluctant to choose Friday to do that spell work, because the pattern of time as it's flowing, as it's unfolding, suggests that whatever work or whatever is conceived in that moment, whatever partakes of the potential of that moment, will likely unfold into heartache and disappointment. So you might get the job if you do the spell work, but it turns out to be a very difficult, disappointing process, one that ends in separation and heartbreak, for example. So pay attention to the cards that follow. But the key idea here is lay out a card for each day of the week, and then based on what you find in the cards, and especially the cards that follow, that you select a day that is most resonant to this magical work that you choose to do. Now we have selected the day, so of course you are free to just go ahead on Friday and do that spell work. You might want to drill down a little bit deeper and see, okay, well, now we know it's Friday. What time on Friday? To do that is pretty simple. Same thing, right? Create a division of time. So you could lay out 24 cards, or you could lay out 12 cards. So because my screen space is limited, I'm not going to do 24 cards, but I'm going to do 12 cards. So let's say we're going to look at Friday from 12 midday to midnight, right? We're going to shuffle the deck. Twelve cards. 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And again, now we're looking, which would be the most appropriate hour here to do this work, right? And there are a couple of options here. Four of Wands is an auspicious hour, I would say, but because it is preceded by that card, it's a little bit troubling. And then we see, Five of Wands, that shows struggle and competition. I'm not feeling so good about that one. Six of Wands, that looks quite cool. I like that. That shows victory and so on. Good news, the classical attributions to the Six of Wands. It's followed by the Queen of Swords. Not a great card, not a terribly bad card. But that's another possibility also. So we have 2 o'clock and we have 5 o'clock as an option, although 2 o'clock is, I feel a little bit less comfortable about 2 o'clock, because as the pattern unfolds, it suggests that whatever is born in that moment, although it will bring fulfillment, will bring some sort of completion, it might turn into struggle. For me here, the winning position is definitely the Wheel of Fortune, followed by the Two of Cups and the Hierophant there before. Because the Hierophant, of course, suggests authority. It does suggest a corporate structure in some readings. So if you're looking for a job in the corporate position, that's a good sign. And the Wheel of Fortune followed by the Two of Cups, which shows a harmonious combination. And then if we follow the thread, we see what? The Wish card there at the end, absolute fulfillment and so on. So it shows a pattern of time evolving into fulfillment, and of course the Wheel of Fortune is a very lucky auspicious card. It shows that is literally the right moment, or the auspicious moment, since the Wheel of Fortune is sometimes connected also to the revolutions of time and so on. That for me would say that this 8 p.m. on Friday would be the most auspicious moment to do this job finding magic. Partially because we've got the Hierophant before and we've got the Two of Cups, so it suggests, a job interview that goes well. Knight of Pentacles is a good work card. It shows you being reliable and consistent, being someone who can be a good constructive contributing force and so on, and then ultimately ending up with some good news maybe, and then we have fulfillment there. Remember to pay attention to the cards that follow. You would then do your spell work at 8 p.m. And as I was saying, it would then partake of that quality of time that the tarot is reflecting. So this is based in a really wonderful idea. It's based in the notion that we are not only the passive recipients of fate, we are not only at the mercy of these underlying patterns and structures in time and how they express, but in fact that we have some agency, that by knowing how to divine or how to choose the right moment, that we can in fact be a creative agent in bringing that quality, that moment in time into being in a way that we want, that it's going to work for us. We tap into that power of that moment and turn it into a resource. So there you have it, some techniques to do electional tarot. I trust you found this video helpful. Remember to subscribe. If you experiment with this, please comment down below. I'd love to hear all about it. And thank you for watching.